Eastern Oregon, thank you for joining us this morning on this August the 10th. This is AM on EOAlive, your connection to Eastern Oregon. And hey, it's good to be back with you in the studio. How are you doing? Switch the camera, Don. There we go.
Oh, I got to switch the camera and talk at the same time.
When I'm doing the opening, it's your job, dude.
I don't know. We don't have a job list for this show. We just kind of wing it. You know?
Generally, when you're talking, I'm switching the camera.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. So
it's what is today? Tuesday?
Today's Tuesday, the 10th.
Tuesday the 10th.
How are things going? Hey, I'm glad you guys are joining us.
There's a couple important events coming up. Eastern Oregon Beer Fest this weekend, which we're a sponsor of. I have 2 more tickets to give away this morning. So if you like, share, and follow, like, share, and comment. Let's change that. Like, share, and comment on this post right here. You'll be entered to win a chance to win some tickets. That's August 14th, 1 to 9 p.m. at the fairgrounds. And it's just a big beer tasting party. They got a lot of different breweries from around the Oregon and the Northwest there. And I went 2 years ago. There wasn't one last year, right?
Right.
I went 2 years ago, even though I don't drink, just to hang out. And it was cool. I mean, I took my aunt and uncle who are craft beer lovers, and we cruised around, and it was a great time. And so that, and then the weekend after that, the Saturday the 21st, is Dana and I's Doug Trice Memorial Scholarship Fund. We already have enough to pay for the 4 scholarships that we were planning on paying. We haven't even played the golf tournament yet.
Yeah.
So awesome. And in honor of somebody that really blessed this community with a lot of different skills and a lot of time. Yeah. And so I feel like it's important to give some time back to honor that guy.
Good.
Yeah.
And going back to the Beer Fest for a minute, I didn't think I was going to be in town, but I think I am going to be. I haven't told you, we're going to the coast on Sunday, so I'll be gone at the beginning.
Yeah. I would have planned on hearing that on
it's on
Saturday
afternoon.
It's on
the calendar, but but you might have missed it. So, but anyhow, and so there's been a lot of planning. I'm the president of Main Street, and there's been a lot of planning that has gone in. Main Street Downtown Association, they're the ones that put together that. The Beer Fest is their major fundraising thing, our major fundraising thing, so that we can do things like Crazy Days and Trick or Treat and all of those downtown association things that cost money. So,
did you see how many views that commercial's gotten? Over 20,000.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoever wrote that was a genius.
Wow. Toot your own horn.
Oh, it was me. That's right. It was.
I didn't look at how many were paid views, but it's gotten over 20,000.
No, well, it's funny because I didn't really think of it as being that outrageous or clever or whatever until Ashley said, "Okay, yeah, sign me up for the next thing that comes into your crazy mind."
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
That commercial
was fun. It turned out.
Benny did a good job.
He did excellent.
Benny, across the board, Benny does a good job.
Yeah, and you talked a little bit on your sports show yesterday about this last weekend, and I have some pictures that Brady gave us that maybe we can talk about on Thursday, because that was just for our staff. That was a huge.
It was funny. I was talking with Bennett about it yesterday. Bennett's our editor. He's an editor, producer, cameraman. I mean, he's a man of many talents. He runs track up at EOU, and I was talking to him about it yesterday, and he said, you know, Dodzy, you know what my favorite part of Saturday was? Because Benny gets a little stressed. He gets a little wired, And I go, what? And he goes, when we were all sitting around in the circle with like an hour and a half to go, and you and Kyle Whitty were sitting there cracking jokes, and we were just having a good time eating pizza. I said, that was probably my favorite part too. The rest of it was pretty stressful.
Yeah. No, it was great. And unfortunately I was like
you were
into the tech at that point, so I couldn't, but still I could. I mean, that's the thing that pleases me I love doing a big events like that, but I love a team. I love a team coming together.
Yeah, and it did. There's no doubt about it. Everybody played their role, and I mean, for the situation. And I mean, I think it was like top quality. There's no doubt.
Yeah, no, I mean, we had 13 crew members altogether.
Yeah. And the response that I've gotten from on Facebook, on, texts from people, messages, I mean, everybody was super happy with everything.
Yeah. Kids they always ask, how did it meet your expectations? And I said, I think about 90%. I mean, there were a couple of things that we weren't able to do that I was wanting to do, but it is what it is.
It is.
Yeah. We checked all of the.
You don't want to set the standard like way too high, because then you set yourself up to fail, right? I think kind of, because where do you go if you're at the top of Mount Everest? Where do you go after that? I mean, you Elon Musk in the space probe, or well, maybe that's what we'll have to do. Yeah, to take it to a whole different level.
Well, hey, if you're joining us, Kevin Cahill is going to be here in a minute with us, and we want to encourage you to chime in, ask questions, hassle him if you want, and we'd love to hear from you.
BC, I'm reading a new book.
What's that?
It's about anti-gravity.
Is it?
Yeah, I can't put it down.
I knew this was the dad joke.
You're already giggling.
I could see it, like the dad joke.
I can't hold it back. You're going to be able to tell every time because I can't not smile.
I'm reading a new book. Funny, I was reading somebody's comment yesterday, and Matthew McConaughey has written a new book, and people are really raving about it. And I don't know, just it struck me as a little, I don't know, just out of the ordinary.
My mom's a huge Dean Koontz and Stephen King fan, so I read all the books after her. Like, she'll buy the book and then pass it to me. I like Dean Koontz, and I'm not really a fiction kind of guy, but Dean Koontz does it for me. I like biographies. I like documentary. I like real stuff. I don't like the fantasy world or the fiction world very much. And Dean Koontz is very much fiction. I mean, he ties in some real things, but he likes to write about supernatural and fiction stuff. And
well, let's get Kevin on, and we'll continue this conversation about book, because that's like the center of his
coup de grace.
Yeah. All right, we'll be right back.
EOAlive is your connection to Eastern Oregon. Get the latest and most relevant news in 2 minutes or less with Megan Demersion on our evening news broadcast. We cover Eastern Oregon's weather daily with Gabe, the EOAlive weather kid, with an extended forecast every Friday. Watch Dodzy on EOAlive Sports to get the latest sports information and interviews with local coaches, athletes, and more. See Brent and Dodzy goof and gaff with local guests on EOAlive's morning talk show, AM on EOAlive. We're available across the board, including Facebook, YouTube, Amazon Fire, and of course, our very own website, EOAlive.tv. We even have our own Roku channel and 24/7 live streaming via Strim. You can also listen to our shows on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and many other popular podcast apps. You can get everything all in one place with the EOAlive app, available on Android, iOS, and the Amazon App Store. EOAlive, your connection to Eastern Oregon.
Hey, Eastern Oregon, welcome back to AM on EOAlive, and we have Kevin with us. How are you doing, man?
Well, it's early. I don't think the returns are all in just yet, but I think I'm doing okay. Yeah.
Well, good. And we've been trying to connect a couple of different times and had conflicts, and so it's good to have you here.
It's good to be here. At my age, it's always good to be anywhere.
Oh, you're not that old. So have you read Matthew McConaughey's book? Have you heard about that?
I have not. I think I saw a little buzz about it, but I don't know much.
And I don't know what the bent is. I mean, I don't, I mean, he's kind of a notable person, but I don't know. I didn't strike him necessarily as a writer. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I know he seems to fancy himself, sort of a multifaceted person, but it's like Hollywood Squares to me. I don't really.
So when you do read, what is your thing? I mean, do you have a particular thing that you love?
Well, I would say that reading throughout my life has been just a sort of a project for me. I mean, whatever at any stage of my life I've been curious about, reading has been one of the chief, means for me to get more knowledgeable about it, gain some insight into it. That combined with talking to people who have read the things that I'm reading or who are curious about the things I'm reading. So I've really sort of always, I've never really fancied myself as a single kind of genre reader. And so I try to read whatever, I'll read nonfiction, I'll read fiction, I read a lot of drama, a lot of plays, because I've done a lot of theater. I also like to read current writers, essay, form stuff having to do with contemporary events, and so I've never really sort of avoided too much. Although maybe if I do avoid something, it might be. I was listening to you talk about Steve King and Kuntz, and I've read a little bit of that stuff, but I don't read too much of it. Although, as an aside, Stephen King taught at the high school I went to just before I got there in Bangor, Maine. Yeah, so I almost met him.
When you talk about the conversations after reading with other people, that's my favorite part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love to read something and then have a conversation about it with somebody else who's read it, because I feel like you can get a better understanding of what you've read if you can actually speak about it and have an open dialect about what you've soaked in.
And you just described what most English teachers hope will happen in the classroom.
Right. Well, is it a hope?
It is a hope.
What do you do? I thought you were retired.
Well, I couldn't find a good shirt.
They paying you to wear that?
And so I thought, well, okay, I'll go with the black. Even no, actually, I'm very happy to represent Grand High School up here.
Well, you were there for like what, 2 years?
2 and 38. Yeah.
So 40 years.
Yeah.
Did you shoot for 40, or is that just when it's like when you got to 40, it's like, okay, I think I'm done?
I was in a foxhole all 40 years. I was always shooting for the next day,
One day at a time. That's what they say, right?
So let's back up and kind of give us your life story in a thumbnail version. Where were you born and how did you get to LeGrand?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was in the Air Force, and so I was born in Baumholder, Germany. And I went to, I was there for a couple of years. We were there for a couple of years. And then he got transferred to England and went to first grade in England. And then came over stateside. My dad is originally from the Pendleton area, Cahill family. His dad was a rancher. My dad lives on the family property on the Umatilla River on the reservation. And so he went to high school in Pendleton and all that. And so I never lived in that area because he was in the Air Force. He was all over the world. And I remember when I came to Eastern Oregon University in 1975 to play basketball here, when I moved up into the 4th floor of Hunt Hall, it was very close to my birthday, and I was 21. And I was counting mentally where the places I had lived in. And I realized I had moved 21 times up to that point.
Wow.
I was 21, I had moved 21 times.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And that's kind of one of the defining traits of my childhood. A consequence of that being that, I didn't really have lifelong friends. I had a lot of experiences in a lot of different places, but unlike my wife, Beth, who born and raised here, and we live here, have done for some time, and she's got friends that go back to, primary school, and so it's a really different life experience.
So then your kind of your first introduction to LeGrand was EOU.
It was, and at the time it was EOSC,
Okay.
Eastern Oregon State College.
All right.
I was thinking it might have been still Eastern Oregon Normal School or Blue Mountain College. It was Blue Mountain College in the really early 1900s. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Yeah, it was. There was a parking lot where the sand volleyball courts are now, and it was at Enloe Hall was the big building and the big theater. So yeah, it was different. But I went to high school in Maine, and I spent a year at the University of Maine, kind of a lost year for me because I kind of just really floundered in school after doing really well at high school. I just sort of had a big, sort of brave that whole year and didn't do anything. And I decided to go relocate, and I got a chance to play basketball at a junior college in Washington, and then got recruited to come to Eastern and was here for a couple of years. And during that time, I sort of slowly gravitated towards a teaching career. Changed majors a lot of times, but sort of started to gravitate towards PE and English. And PE finally fell out of the picture, but I stayed with English, and then started looking for a job. And got a job in Idaho, taught at Haley, Idaho for a year. Made $8,800 my first year of teaching, and I coached 3 sports, and so
that's crazy. That's so crazy.
And then I got a chance to come to LeGrand, and I've been here I've had 3 separate years where I stepped away for a year for different reasons, and I've been here since then.
So that was in 79 is when you started.
Actually, technically, it was the fall of 78.
Okay.
79. I always think of it as 79 because that's the year I finished. That's when I finished my first year.
That's the year I was born.
There you go.
1979.
Yeah, it was
good year.
It was a good year.
It was.
A lot of good things.
Well, and the reason you graduated from high school then?
97.
You were born.
I was born in 79.
You were born in 79.
I graduated. I was class in
Glad
97.
we got that established.
I never had you for a teacher though.
No.
No.
Well, that accounts for your being well adjusted, and gainfully employed, and all that. Yeah.
Well, I thought maybe he might have got tossed out of one of your classes or something.
No,
I
I did. I wasn't. I was good. I was a good kid.
Were you?
I got suspended one time my senior year. I was walking down the hall. I got bumped into ran into somebody on accident, and they just took a swing at me. And I defended myself, and I got tossed out of school for 2 days for one time. That's it. That's the only infraction I ever got. And it was my mom's first year at the high school too. And it was right by her office. So it almost gave her a heart attack.
Yeah. I think the most trouble I ever got in school was I got kicked off the school bus once when I think it was in 8th grade for surfing on the back of one of the back seats in the bus, standing on the back and surfing to the school. School bus driver reported it, and because we were in mostly not a military school, but it was in Klamath Falls. It was Henley High School, and there were an awful lot of Air Force kids down there at the time. And my dad got a call from the base commander, not from the principal. The principal called the base commander to talk to my dad, and so my dad got in trouble, sort of, and then that was it.
I did worse than that on the bus and didn't get kicked out of school. I remember my senior year, we were on the Bend trip, right, for football. And we were on the way back. We had lost. It was cold. And there's always an equipment van behind us with all the gear, right? Well, the assistant coaches drive the equipment van. Us seniors are sitting in the back. And, of course, I was kind of a goofball. So next thing you knew, there was butt cheeks on the back window for the coaches behind us. That didn't go over very well, especially since we lost.
Yeah, well, since we're talking about it, I never got kicked out of school, but I remember in junior high, one of my friends and I we were goofing around, and I think he ran up and he punched me in the arm. and I turned around and chased after him and tripped him. And he had a handful of stuff, and I tripped him, and he went flat and all of his stuff. And we look up, and the principal was right there.
That's never good.
Yeah, and come to find the principal had watched the whole thing. He was like, "Get out of here, you guys!" I mean,
Right.
there was no, it was. I think I did get a swat though.
Who coached? Let's change subjects.
Yeah.
Who coached basketball when you were at EOSC? Who was your coach? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, Pasco Aratola was my.
Oh, it was Aratola.
Pasco.
Huh? Wow,
He didn't recruit me. The guy that recruited me left before I got there in the fall, so I didn't know Pasco when I first got there. But yeah.
wow. So is that it? Would his son be Ron Aratola?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And then Nick. Yeah, I think that's how. Yeah, Ron Aratola is Pasco's son. Wow, that was what 75.
76.
So, what sports were you involved in when you were basketball? Clearly, were there other sports that you did?
Well, in high school, I did everything I could. I played baseball, played basketball. I did. My basketball coach made me do cross country, so I did that. And then in college, I focused on basketball. I didn't do anything else. But since my school days, I've taken up tennis and become a pretty avid tennis player. Play all the time.
Tennis is fun. What position did you play?
Basketball?
Yeah, wing.
Well, it's funny, my career sort of is an interesting sort of progression because we had a really good team in high school. We were one of the top teams in the state of Maine, and we had a tall team, so I played guard. And then when I got to college, I played swing. In junior college, when I got to Eastern, we didn't have a really tall team, so I kind of went back and forth between 4 and 5, 3, 4, and 5, at Eastern. So kind of the opposite of what you kind of expect. But
Isn't that crazy? Like nowadays, you wouldn't. There's no way you could play the 5 at the NAI level with your size.
no,
But back then,
right.
that was common. I mean, like even like my junior and senior year in high school was weird years because we were really big. Everybody on those 2 teams could dunk, including the guard.
Mm-hmm.
But average wise, throughout that era, it was small. Now we have Eastern had a 7-footer last year.
Right.
It's crazy how people have just gotten bigger. Really weird.
So let's pivot a little bit and talk about your relationship with students, because that's kind of, you and I have been in each other's I've been here 25 years and I've known about you and we've been in each other's orbits, but we streamed the graduation, and you just retired, right?
I did.
Yeah. So this is your first school year. That first September, you're not going back.
This is the first August I haven't started feeling that daily dread of the end of summer approaching.
So, but you had a poem or something that you had prepared at the end of the graduation, and it was fantastic. And I mean, it was, your wordsmithing was wonderful, and the response from the students was, anyhow, the point is that what you had to say reflected on your relationships with your students. And I don't know, talk about, I mean, there was a tremendous amount of meaningfulness that came out of that for you. I mean, I could tell that you just really enjoyed your relationship with the kids.
Well, first of all, thank you for those kind words. And I appreciate that, because I wanted to use the occasion not to give advice to kids at graduation, because that's other people's job and it's a pretty thankless job. I just wanted a chance to see if I couldn't share a bit of myself in a way that reminded people there of just how sort of human this whole project is, and how there's really it's really fraught with all kinds of uncertainties, and most of us just hope to be. My dad was fond of saying it's better to be lucky than good sometimes, and I just really root for people to be lucky, because I feel like we all need that. But anyway, to come back to the poem itself, I spent a long time trying to sort of, first of all, just look in the mirror. And one of the things that continually I'm reminded of about myself, especially as a teacher, every fall I look at kids' faces, and some of them are familiar faces, like I had them last year. And I'll say, "Hey, Mr. Cahill," and I'm faced right at that moment then with a decision. Am I going to say, "Hey, what's your name again?" Or am I going to say, "Hey, how you doing?" And
Right.
I almost always opt for the latter. I almost never had the courage to say to confess to someone, "I don't remember your name," because they remember mine. And it's really one of those signature moments for me. I just encounter it so often, and it just it has bothered me for a long time that I'm not better with remembering names, because I have some colleagues like Jerry Sebastian, for example, who, God, he seems like he remembers the name of every kid who ever walked through his door. I was so in awe of that talent. And that's just not me. And what I realized was that so much of what I've encountered in my life and in my work has it's like I travel light. I don't carry all these specific memories with me. Instead, what I carry is the residue of these experiences, is what it feels like to me. But that for me was important, and I wanted to somehow communicate to people how that, for some people anyway, for me, the experiences that you gain are really sort of distilled, and they become a kind of content that sort of animates and shapes you, even if you're not able to, specifically name and identify the discrete elements of that experiment. In this case, like people's names and what have you. So I just wanted to, in a sort of good-humored way, sort of deliver that, not really an apology, but just sort of an acknowledgement that, you guys have been great, you've been special, and I'm probably going to forget, all of your names, but that doesn't mean it wasn't really important and valuable to me. So.
Well, and you had a refrain. I'm going to put you on the spot. You had a refrain that you said a couple of different times. 6,000.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure you do. Yeah, give that to us, because it was so powerful, and you came back to it a couple of different times.
Well, I mean, the refrain itself, I'm not sure.
Or just that.
But the idea that this place, this space, this place is, there are ghosts in this space, the 6,000 that have come before you, and that all of them are most of them now are names that I can't remember. But you sitting in front of me, you are people who helped me remember who I was, relive things I forgot. I was, make me wonder how I was ever, what you are now. All of those. Being around young people is really a wonderful thing. It's a really wonderful thing. It just sort of keeps you humble. It keeps you. I think one of the worst reasons in the world to get into teaching is, in some ways, this may sound strange, but is to teach people things. If you walk in the classroom feeling like you have all the answers, I don't think you're going to have much of a relationship with your students. It's sort of like people who start a conversation, and they start the conversation and they're nursing underneath, they're not telling anybody this, but they're nursing this intention to win the conversation.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, if you start a conversation that way, it's not going to be much of a conversation. And if you walk into a classroom thinking you're going to, on some level, you're going to win, instead of walking into the classroom and somehow play these people, let's see what kind of experience we can have here. For me, that's where it's at. It's more interesting. that way. And I think it has a greater likelihood of engaging students in a way that makes them feel like they're invited into the process in a way that, they feel like they can get something from.
Well, and hanging around with the young people keeps you young too.
It can.
For me, that's part of what I love about my job is I'm around college and high school kids a lot, and it just gives me energy. I feed off of it.
It's interesting, isn't it, though, to watch how it does affect. I think a lot of people who in the business are in it because of that. But you run into a few people who just get grumpy around kids.
Oh yeah. Oh, I've seen it. You can always tell you can't always tell, but a lot of times you can tell when somebody's like close to retiring because they're just like, my baseball coach Burns was coaching baseball at the time, and he went on to AD for a while afterwards. But he was just burnt out with baseball by the time we got there. And I get it. He played since the time he was a little kid and then coached for however many, you know what I mean? And it's just,
I coached my first year. I coached 1 year of JV baseball with Burns.
Oh, did you?
He needed somebody. And I had never imagined myself being baseball coach. I still don't. But I helped him that 1 year. It was great. Burns was great.
Oh, I love Burns.
He had such a great energy for.
He was my favorite PE teacher. Like I had him in middle school. He was teaching at the middle school at the time, and then coaching the varsity baseball team. And yeah, he was phenomenal. I mean, his classes were just exactly what my personality needed. Was like laid back. I'm not the kind of person that responds really well to this. Yeah. I'm the kind of person that responds to this, and he's this. Yeah. You know what I mean? And his teaching style worked for me very well, and coaching as well. I don't need somebody right here in my ear all the time. I need somebody to tell me this is what you need to do, make it happen.
Yeah. Well, and I want to reflect. There's a comment I want to reflect. So one of our core values of EOAlive is we're not in the game of teaching people. We're in the game of informing people. We're not going into it as an agenda. And somebody's asking, well, what do you think of critical race theory in schools? And the answer is that's not the point of this conversation. We're not. Our point is not to put you on the spot. We're having a conversation, and so I'm trying to inform. I want to inform our audience too that our game is not to teach someone. It's not to carry an agenda. It's not to, it's certainly not to put anyone on spot or anything like that. And so, thank you, Julie, for your question. That's just not where we're going. So.
Well, but look, I don't mind a question.
No, but I don't. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, let me just say that as I look back over my career, I remember my principal getting letters or phone calls expressing concerns about things like, and these things really, really happen. Cahill's teaching paganism because they're studying the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey in English, or Cahill's teaching secular humanism because we're studying Renaissance and that sort of thing. And these are real live button issues 35 years ago that I got called to the carpet for, got called into the office to talk about. I didn't change my approach, but these were the sorts of things that people sort of conjured up in their brains as being really worrisome issues. And all I can say to people who worry about things like that, and I would say that CRT is analogous to both of those examples. You need to get to know your teachers. You need to talk to people. You need to look at people, and instead of sort of dragging them through this checklist of things that, are you doing it? Are you not doing it? Are you doing it right? Are you doing it wrong? You need to get a sense of whether or not you can trust this person with your kids.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, 100%.
And every single teacher I know at LeGrand High School is in it for the right reasons. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
Now, you might not agree with how they teach or their particular style of teaching or even some of their curriculum choices. But I can just tell you that they're there doing the best they can, and they're trying to provide experiences with kids where they get opportunities to get exposed to ideas and information that will challenge them and get them to reflect. But look, if it was that easy to indoctrinate people, we'd have had that done a long time ago. But the thing about teenagers is they're really tough to, so tell them what to think or what to do. They sort of do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I like about them, and so.
Yeah, you can only hope to get the door open just a little, like just enough to get a little in there. What are you glad that you're retired with all this COVID stuff?
Oh yeah.
Did it wear on you a little?
Yeah.
Yeah, the COVID thing. I mean, on a very purely selfish level, yes, the timing for me is right. Although it sort of merges with some other things in my life that are right. Like, for example, I need a nap every day, and
No comment.
I just they won't let me do that, and so I'm going to have to retire. So, but on a more serious note, I really feel for the students and my colleagues going into this next year, and I personally wish we could somehow enlist people in a good faith effort to get this public health thing going in the right direction, and for people to get vaccinated and people to wear masks in situations like classrooms where they're going to be close to each other. I'm not one of these people that likes mandates. I've never liked mandates. I've always been a sort of contrarian that way. But freedom always exists in tension with something. Your freedom you want to go sit on a mountaintop and feel free? Okay, go ahead. But how long are you going to stay there and do that? How long is that experience going to sustain you as a person? You want to feel freedom, you've got to be in tension with people who are sort of challenging you in ways, and that's when you feel your freedom. And so we live in a time right now where we need high information people speaking to other people and saying, look, this is what I think we should do. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but this is what I think we should do because this is what will help. This is what will help. Get your shot. Wear a mask in appropriate situations. Do what we can do to get our kids back into classrooms so that they're able to do what we hope for them to be able to do.
Yeah.
But all this talk about freedom and people having their own opinions on things, you can have your own opinion, but you can have your own opinion on gravity, and that thing is still going to fall on the floor when it falls off the table.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think that public schools are caught in a bind.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're not, I would guess that there's probably, I don't know, I'll bet there's 30 or 40% of the teachers out there that are like, no, I don't want to wear masks. No, I don't. This is not what I think we should do or whatever. But on the same hand, as they evaluate everything, they're teaching in a system that there have mandates that are passed down from the state. They get funding from the state. I mean, there's an authority chain that they have to go forward
right.
with.
I recognize all that, but that's not really where I live. I don't care so much about that. I know it's real. I don't mean to dismiss it, but I'm appealing to people on a cultural level here and saying, I'm a little puzzled by the reluctance to make a gesture that is minimal risk to you and possible great payoff to everyone. And that to me is my appeal. It's like, I think all of us need to be willing to acknowledge when we're wrong, but we also need to be hungry for information from the widest possible range of sources, and not to be satisfied with information that simply confirms the outcome we've already decided in our heads is going to be the outcome we desire. And I see a lot of that going on. I see a lot of motivated reasoning going on where people have a position, and so now they're just collecting information that fortifies that position.
Yeah. Well, we live in a culture that has trained. We live in a society that's trained people to do that. You know what I mean? Like we live in a society where
we don't need to be trained to do that. We're wired.
Okay, but we live in a society where people have been trained to push agenda. I mean, our own agenda, yeah, we're wired for that, right? But the overall agenda of a particular stance or whatever, we aren't wired to do that. I'm not like a science guy. Like I didn't study history. I didn't study science, but I can't imagine that, 200 years ago, we were, I mean, it probably was similar, but it wasn't like it is today. We nowadays, both parents have to work. The kid stays home most of the time, is on this right here, doing this. So they're getting all this information from other places that they didn't get 100 years ago. So now all of a sudden it's not the core agenda. It's the everywhere else. You know what I mean? That's how I feel about it. Like people just are, and then we don't know what to trust. At least I don't. I read a lot on here. I mean, this is my job, and I don't know what information is right.
I think that last comment is, to me, the most germane comment. I think it's the comment that for me has become the signature characteristic of our time. People no longer know who or what to trust. And paradoxically, in an age when there's more information at our fingertips than we've ever had before, we no longer feel like we know what information is legit and what isn't. And I really feel I feel like appealing to my fellow community members to try to step back and not to be so cynical, so suspicious of everybody, and to think, every plane that takes off and flies and lands successfully in another airport has done that because a bunch of people who knew what the heck they were doing, were able to design a plane, fly it, maintain it, do all that kind of stuff, and get it there. And we get on planes all the time, and we don't question the expertise of the people that did that. Yeah, and yet we somehow come to the point now where almost nobody has the authority to stand up and say something and be believed by anybody, not whatever their bona fides.
Right.
I mean, it's like, there's somebody over here says that's not true. And so I just feel like we've gone to the very edge of the precipice here with this whole denying the validity of knowledge. And people, I feel like we need to sort of step back and not be so paranoid about what other people's agendas might be. Now, I'm not saying there aren't bad actors out there. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. There are a lot of bad actors out there, and that's why we're where we are.
Yeah.
Right now.
And I totally agree with you. I mean, to reflect a little bit, my former wife is a teacher, she's near retirement. And so I have a huge amount of sympathy for school teachers. But if I hadn't been married to her, I wouldn't have that experience. I wouldn't know, And so because of my experience and my relationship with her, and even now we're close. We're like brother and sister. I wouldn't have as much sympathy for school teachers in schools as what I do. And so then when I have some of my friends who are like, yeah, the schools have an agenda to do this, I think of people that I know, not only her, but other people. And it's like, I can't see it in their makeup to have some kind of a hidden agenda.
Right.
And you can spread that to several different other places. And if you're watching this today, and I mean, we've gotten lots of comments about the Cody Bowen interview, the Cody and Matt Scarfo interview that we did, and we covered the parents that went to the school board listening session. And by the way, the school board had that session for people like that to express their opinions. That was the whole point, and we've got some people saying, you guys are like, you're way right, and so anyhow, I'm with you. I think that we are, I had somebody that I was engaged in a conversation yesterday with, and the minute that I identified myself personally, hey, come in and let's talk about that. All of a sudden the conversation, like, greatly goes down, because now it's between two people. We're now humans with
Right,
each other.
right.
Yeah. And we are like missing that so much in our culture, you know.
Yeah, and on a personal note, I have really, and it's probably a function of being as old as I am. I feel like I have had to sort of learn how to be on social media. It didn't come instinctively to me like young people have. So I feel like I've made a few missteps along the way. And when you add into the mix my sort of natural proclivities towards, argument and what have you, the whole experience for me on social media, primarily Facebook, has really been up and down, and ultimately pretty dissatisfying to me. And I own that. I feel like I've contributed to my own sort of unhappiness on Facebook, to the point where I've really stepped back from posting on there and on subjects that are of real importance to me, other than just marking some cute cat photo or something like that. But I want to talk to people in person. I want to sort of be in a conversation with them. I don't want to get in some kind of trying to
Keyboard ninja war. That's what I call it.
Or get owned by somebody. It's not satisfying.
Well, and what's funny, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, is that these echo chambers that we form are part of it is manufactured and supported by the algorithm of Facebook. Facebook finds the things that you like and it puts those in your feed. And so then people are even more polarized, because they come to the false assumption that, everybody believes the way that I believe, and this person is just outside of their beliefs, and that even polarizes us more, which is just adds to the problem,
I think society doesn't do a good job of I don't think we've done a good job of like making sure that people that have actual degrees and knowledge are labeled properly. I think there's got to be some way that we can put that into a tighter box, because you can go on the website and you can develop a website that says that you're this, guru on mask wearing, and in all reality, you've never done anything. It's just, and I don't know how we could get there, but we put, like these templates for everything pretty much, in order to be a teacher, you have to have a degree, right? Okay. Well, we don't have that for this. And that's something that as a society, if we're going to keep using this, social media, the internet, we're going to have to develop some sort of template.
But I think everybody's credibility right now is in the dump. That's kind of what you're saying. I mean, it's just that we're skeptical. Doesn't matter what degree you have anymore.
I mean, if somebody had an agenda to sort of destabilize and undermine this whole, civilization, you could hardly think of a better strategy than the one that seems to be unfolding right now, which is to sort of undermine people's confidence in knowledge, period.
Right.
And that unfortunately seems to be sort of, an evolving, emerging kind of situation here.
Well, and part of that issue has been COVID. Part of that issue has been the people that have been in authority have just changed their mind. No, you don't need to wear masks. Now you do. I mean, just the constant shifting of stuff,
Well, I think COVID is the latest opportunity for it to manifest. I don't think COVID is the cause of that, though. I think it was going on long before that. And I'll just say this. In fact, I just read this recently. When an organization or an institution or even a person of authority is caught in some sort of lie or misstatement or factual error, you can attribute to that act of lying really serious, nefarious motives, or you can attribute it to incompetence, or it might just be a mundane kind of thing. In other words, what might appear to be a large lie might actually not conceal a very large truth. It might be a fairly unsexy kind of consequence of the lying. And so, for example, I think organizations and people with a lot of, riding on their public reputation will sometimes whitewash what seem to them to be fairly minor things, but they're trying to keep their public perception, in line, right? And so, but those of us who have a hunger for, scandal, we see EOAlive and go, oh, well, you see, I told you, and I just don't know sometimes whether we just go overboard in that feeding frenzy about when things go wrong. These are human institutions. People, they need time to figure things out. I think about us last spring or a year ago, spring, when COVID started in the schools. Oh my God, we were flying by the seat of our pants. We didn't know what the heck we were doing. We were just doing the best we could.
Right.
And if you wanted to point to problems and mistakes and people reversing their positions on things, you could have had a field day with us.
Right.
And so that's kind of how I look at that.
So it kind of comes down to what people's intentions really are, which is really difficult to get to.
It is.
And it matters what people intend, and again, it's one of our core values, in our thing is if we come across a mistruth, if we come across a misinterpretation and we know that the person that we were reporting on really intended on something different, we will report on their intentions. I mean, we will do what we can to bring that forward because it matters.
Right.
Yeah.
Got some comments.
Yeah.
James Hicks says, holy cow, he's still alive. and then Braden
James,
Rudd
I
says,
remember your name.
Braden Rudd says Mr. Cahill was the best teacher when I went to high school at LHS.
Braden was awesome. I love Braden. I remember Braden too. See, there are some people I haven't forgotten.
Is there ever a time when you you're depressed or you wonder, wow, 6,000 and I've used that number at different times, but that is 6,000 students that's approximately of the number of students that you had in.
Yeah, that was my fuzzy math.
Okay. Is there a time where you think, wow, did I ever make a difference? I've invested 40 years of my life in this. I'm sorry, that's probably a very hard question.
I think if I'm totally honest, I might come off here as a bit too superficial for my own liking here, but I mean, I try not to get too grandiose about what I'm doing, in the classroom. And honestly, I like that Hippocratic oath, do no harm. That's sort of, I sort of try to do as little damage as possible. Because it's really painful when you feel like you have done the wrong thing, by a young person. It haunts you. It kind of, you feel like you want to be able to run the clock back and take another swing at that. It's like, that wasn't what I intended. I wish I had gone a different way. So those can be, yes, I have lost sleep over interactions I've had with kids, because I'm doing my Monday morning quarterbacking of, how did I handle that? How did that go? And it's also, teaching is not for everyone. It can be really challenging to look at a bunch of kids or at a kid and realize you are not what they are looking for. You are not the answer to their questions.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's very much almost a sort of a core kind of challenge to look at how can I be here with this person in a way that will at least not get in their way, not make it worse for them.
Right.
What was it like when you taught in the prison?
That was a really, really significant experience for me. For those people who don't know what you're talking about, I got an opportunity to work in a prison program in Pendleton called Humanities in Perspective, and a small team of us, mostly Eastern professors and myself, went and delivered some classes on from sort of tracing a line from ancient Greek culture all the way up to contemporary American history and culture. And the inmates that we taught had to apply for this course and had to sort of go through a process of sort of proving their commitment and also sort of passing some behavioral, checks to gain the trust of being in there. And I would go down to Pendleton a couple times a month in the dead of winter and go through all the checks going into the prison, and then get up to this room with those 15 guys, and it was really something. These guys, I mean, for them, the classroom was they were out of prison. They were in the classroom.
And escape from.
They were out of prison and they were in the classroom. And I told my students many times, you guys think you're in prison because you're in the classroom. Well, these guys knew they were not in prison. They were in the classroom. There was a portal to the world,
Wow.
And they were really interested. They were happy to be there. They were hungry to sort of, engage, that kind of stuff. And they brought an adult perspective to the material that was rich. It was really interesting. And they were, in their own ways, they were all really earnest and serious. It was really, I'm really glad I got a chance to do that.
Have you talked with any of them have you stayed in contact with any of them?
Well, no, the short answer to that is no. And part of that is a security thing. They were never allowed to have our personal information, our home contact information. That was part of the deal with going in there. Although I'm guessing they could easily sort of Google, our names.
You think?
I never worried too much about that, but we were told, not to sort of cross certain lines, with them. I'm guessing most of those guys are still behind bars.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, so maybe some of them got out, but there were some pretty serious, sentences being served.
That's crazy.
Well, is there a highlight? Can you think of maybe a couple of moments that it was like in your teaching career?
If you can remember.
Yeah. Something that was really important to you that you felt like was significant.
I'm tempted to sort of point to some of my experiences in theater, having production teams and casts that I worked with for different productions. There were several that were really, really meaningful kind of journeys that we went on. Actually, they were all really meaningful. I mean, there were a few that got headlines in the community and that people, knew about. But when we did the Diary of Anne Frank, that was a special group of people, and we got a chance to travel to Portland and talk to a Holocaust survivor there. And she was a grandmotherly figure, and she baked cookies for our cast.
Oh, wow.
She had a tattoo on her arm, and she talked about how there every morning in the camp you had to fight just to live. And there was this grandmother, sweet lady talking in those kind of terms to my kids, and we were all just sort of we could feel the close to the bone kind of quality of that strength.
Wow.
And I think it really helped the kids sort of dial up their commitment to the show they were doing. And but when we did Picasso at the La Panagile, and we had the whole brouhaha here locally about whether we should be allowed to do that play at the high school, and it got shut down, and we ended up moving it over to the college and played for packed houses 3 nights in a row, where we probably would have had a grand total of about 60 people showing up at the high school. Those kind of experiences were, Steve Martin underwrote our performance, and he actually got to meet a couple of our cast members, and we got a chance to hang out with Steve Martin for a little bit, and I don't drop that name just to he was a legitimately interesting and interested person, and he helped us out, and I really, appreciated that. So, but there've been an awful lot of experiences like that I look back on, and I was lucky to really have them, and the kids were really great.
Well,
Go ahead.
No, and I taught college for 4 years, and you have those. And I was a youth pastor, for 6. And sometimes there's those moments where it's like, yeah, they'll make a mark on you, but that they made a mark on the kids that they will never forget. There's just it's a little bit of a holy moment. Mm-hmm. It's like this will formulate them. So sometimes one way or the other, this will be a mark in their mind for the rest of their lives.
And that's one of the things I love about theater. I mean, it can happen anywhere, and I've seen it happen in classrooms. It's a lot more subtle and harder to maybe spot sometimes. But you see a kid accept some challenges, accept some risks on stage, and then have these sort of breakthroughs or sort of personal victories,
right?
Where they realize they can do something they never realized they could do before, or they find some talent that had sort of escaped them. They hadn't realized they could do that, and the stage is a great place for those kind of discoveries to get made. In fact, we really bank on those discoveries getting made. We sort of hope for them and expect them, because if we're going to catch lightning in a bottle, we need to have a little, magic happen on stage. And that usually comes when people risk things. And so I've always loved theater for that part of it. I love working with actors and saying, okay, well, what can we find here? What could we try that we haven't thought of trying yet? That kind of thing.
I think it turns right back to sports myself.
Mm-hmm.
Same exact thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's exactly the same. You see this kid in practice working, you're like, okay, this kid's going to break out. And then, right. He goes 4 for 4 and hits 2 home runs. You know what I mean? And that's like the kid in theater who, you see them putting in work, and you're just hoping that there's that opportunity, right. And that opportunity comes and they blow it out the park.
I think you're absolutely right. And I have a really poignant memory in my own athletic career of wishing I had tried to do more. In our state tournament game, we were the number 1 seed. We fell behind a good team. And at the end, it was clear we weren't going to win. And at that point, I just decided I was going to do some things that I didn't normally do to try and bring us back. And it was the first glimpse I had of, I could have played like this. I could have done this more often. This is what I could have, and I realized, there's a certain amount of personal bravery involved in risking, those kind of things. But there's also a role for the coach to play in bringing you out, helping you sort of consider taking that step. And I don't think I ever played for a coach. And this is not to, throw shade at any of my coaches. I don't think I ever played for a coach that really saw it that way, that saw an opportunity to say, hey, Kevin, why don't you sort of get outside the box here a little bit and try something? Why don't you try to take things more, in hand? Because I think I wonder what that would have been like.
Right.
So.
But you help people do that on the stage. I mean, that was kind of your role as a director from time to time.
Yeah. And I think we as teachers generally are drawn on those kind of personal
right.
experiences to sort of inform their own approaches
right.
to what they do with kids. Although sometimes teachers sort of slavishly repeat the experiences they had. Like if you played, I had a couple of coaches that were Bobby Knight style coaches, and
chucking chairs.
I had a guy come in throwing an aerosol can, ricocheting off past our heads, yelling at us, and we're all ducking our heads. And I never really wanted to coach like that, but I know a lot of people become sort of disciples of coaches, and they just sort of take the template and they just apply it because they thought it worked for them, which is fine. I mean, that's what a lot of people do.
The Bobby Knight style coaches don't last anymore in today's society.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I wonder if you're right about it. You might be right. I mean, I know there's a lot of other kinds of coaches now. And back in the day, Bobby Knight was like, he was the thing.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, in the 60s, 70s, and into the 80s, the Bobby Knight style, you could get by with it, but today you can't chuck chairs at people, and you can't go on tirades like Bobby did. Great coach. I mean, he was a winning coach, and a lot of his players absolutely adored him. But just because of the societal shift, we just don't.
Well, you didn't go play for Bobby Knight if you didn't already. I mean, that was a big mistake on your part if you went to play for Bobby Knight and you didn't like that kind of coaching.
Right. You had to fit the mold, right? So what now? You're retired. Naps in the afternoon.
Absolutely, naps in the afternoon.
I'm sure some adventures. Yeah. It's almost nap time already. Yeah.
Well, I anticipate doing some more theater now that I have a little more time. Grant Turner and Terry Hale are friends of mine, and we've got a theater culture going out there in Elgin that is now a combination of what used to be called the Grand Shakespeare Company and the Elgin Opera House, whose fare is typically good musicals. And so we're hoping to, I'm hoping to help them, sort of get that going again after COVID. Hopefully we can get back indoors with some productions, and I want to be a part of that. I have some personal interests that I'm going to continue to cultivate. And my my wife just got hired as an art teacher at Elgin halftime, so I'm going to be probably cooking some dinners here.
I committed to play. I've never been in a play in my life. Never done any of that, but last year I committed to at least one play to Terry. He said you should try. I said I'll play a small role in one play and see how I like it.
Well, Terry's one of those guys that I was describing earlier who will get something out of you. He's a good guy to work for. So,
yes, Terry and I are very close.
You'll be in good hands with Terry.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll be involved with you then, because we're very invested in the Elgin Opera House.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy that it's there and that it's given not only adults but kids an opportunity too. Terry's huge on giving kids opportunities, and I love it. Like, we had a couple of our guys that worked with Terry on the High School Musical play. I mean, we did the production of that. It was all online, and Brent and Terry basically just gave these kids the reins, man, and let them produce, and edit. And I love that kind of stuff. Empowerment is key.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for joining us and being with us.
Awesome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. We got to jam through our stuff.
I'll get through it quick.
Well, wait, but listen, we got to do weather.
Yeah, we never even did the weather.
Yeah.
All right, Tuesday today. It's 9:00 right now, so it's 66 degrees. It's going to get all the way up to 91 today, BC. That's going to get hot. That's like 8 degrees hotter than yesterday. It cooled down a little yesterday.
Yeah.
It's going to be clear, no precipitation at all. It looks
good
like
tennis weather.
Yeah, very good tennis weather. Tomorrow it's going to get hot. We're going to get close to 100. It's going to be hazy in the morning, probably some smoke, I would imagine, and 74, and then it's going to just crank all the way up to 97 by 3.
So it's going to be warm tomorrow evening.
Yeah, it's going to be a warm one. I thank goodness for AC.
It's probably going to be one of those things where you run the AC at night.
Yeah. Tomorrow. I run the AC at night. I like it.
I haven't. We haven't the last 2 days.
I like it hot during the day, but for sleep, it's got to be cold.
Yeah.
So 1743 on this day, it was the very first time that they had a prize fight. So like somebody got paid something for winning a fight. 1743 recorded. So it could have happened before that, but this is recorded. In 1960 in LA, the premiere of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho came out with Anthony Perkins and Janet Leigh, which that movie, I'm sure you've seen it. I mean, it's an all-time classic.
I don't think I've ever seen Psycho.
You haven't?
No.
Oh,
I've seen clips of it here and there.
On this day, they found Jeffrey Epstein dead in 2019. Yeah.
There's memes everywhere. About
Yeah.
that.
You can
It's like-
formulate your own opinion on that. I'm not going there. No, I don't touch that stuff. Guess what the song was? Don't sing it, please. Thank you. There it is.
Everything you do.
Yeah. No, it's everything I do, actually.
Everything I do. I do
Yeah.
it
My
for you.
positive quote for the day comes from Michael Jordan. You have to expect things of yourself before you can do them. Michael Jordan said that. You have to expect things of yourself before you can do them. And that makes complete sense. I mean, you can't climb Mount Everest. That's one of my favorite terms. I say it all the time. You can't climb out Mount Everest if you don't expect to do it.
That's true.
If you go in expecting to only make it halfway, you're only going to make
Yeah.
it halfway.
That's right. You're not going to accidentally succeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it.
All righty. Well, hey, thank you, Eastern Oregon, for joining us.
Oh, Irene Martin, you won the tickets. Get a hold of me.
All right.
2 tickets to Beer Fest.
All right. Hey, thank you. Good. You guys will see you
Thursday.
Thursday right here.